Welcome, everyone. We are very delighted to have our distinguished speaker from South Carolina State University today. So it is Dr. Judith Mwakalonge. I know her for a long time. We collaborated on projects. So she's a great collaborator. I'm always amazed by her knowledge and experience on safety research. So yeah, we are glad to have her as a primary part of our center. So Judith is an associate director of our Center for Connected Multimodal Mobility. About her bio, and I'm Ronnie Chaudhary, I'm the director for the Center for Connected Multimodal Mobility. So Dr. Judith Mwakalonge is an associate professor of transportation engineering in the Department of Engineering at the South Carolina State University. Her research focuses on developing solutions for improving the safety and efficiency of transportation systems. Her primary research focus includes transportation safety and operations, travel demand modeling and simulation, the impact of distracted biking and walking on transportation safety, and smart mobility applications in transportation. She received her PhD in civil engineering from Tennessee Technological University in Tennessee. So we are very fortunate to have Judith as our distinguished speaker today. So Judith, we are looking forward to your talk today on a very important topic.
Thank you, Ronnie. And thank you for the opportunity for me to talk about the work that we have been doing at South Carolina State University in collaboration with Clemson and Benedict and other universities. So I'll talk about personal electric mobility devices, and these include a lot of variation of devices. But before I cover what devices I'm going to be talking about, this is just what I'm going to be talking about today. So I'll just talk you through a little bit of background and the review on existing policies that we did that are on PMDS, and the review on policies on campuses. What do college campuses think of these devices? And then a bit of accident statistics that are related to PMDS, and then the experiments that we have done so far and what we found, and then some future research. So these are electronic personal electric mobility devices. This is just a sample, so it's not comprehensive. There are a lot of variations, and as we speak, they keep on improving. If you're looking at the hoverboard here, now they have the off-road ones that can be able to ride on off-road, and they're having a lot of variations as we speak. So they're improving them as time goes. So you have the hoverboard here, and then unicycle, electric scooters. These ones are becoming way more common, and most companies are coming up with ways where they have multiple stations actually in cities. I remember looking at Lime, they have one in Columbia area too. And then you have the Segways, the most airy ones, and then the early versions of electric car that were made for people with mobility issues. So looking at policies that are available out there, so we scouted a lot, I can say, around the world. So this is just a snapshot. I just picked a few, but we looked at Asia, Africa, Southern America, and North America. So it varies by countries, not even uniform by country or the continent. So the few ones you can see when it comes to operation in public infrastructure, those are public walkways, roadways. Some countries do ban them. For example, in the age of Saudi Arabia and Singapore, that's what we found in the literature. But when you go to Japan, they're being allowed to operate on public infrastructure. And that's an example in Europe. For example, you have in Hungary, they're not allowed, but when you go to Germany, they're allowed on bike lanes. And then you have hoverboards that are not allowed. So it varies from place to place. So that's what we found so far when it comes to public infrastructure. Now, looking at minimum age, who can be able to ride? Again, this one covers on global perspective. Also varies, but the minimum that we're able to find on countries where they had that minimum age specified was 12 years old in France, and then it varied all the way to 18 years in Portugal. So that's the minimum age that somebody can be able to ride a PMDS. And some countries, I can say most of them didn't have any specification on who can ride, so it was wide open. And for maximum speed, also varies from where it was not specified what the maximum speed that somebody can be able to ride a PMDS at, to a maximum of 8 miles per hour in Brazil. Of course, these ones were changed. Some of the countries use kilometers per hour, so we had to change them to miles per hour so we can be uniform across the board, especially with the ones we have in the US. And in Canada, you can go all the way to 20 miles per hour. So that's pretty high when you are walking, you have to walk beside it. And we looked at the police safety requirements. What are the safety needs or limitations that are there that people have to follow when riding on public infrastructure? And some countries didn't have any safety requirements, and some countries require owners or operators to have insurance and to wear protective gear. So those were the findings we found from the global policies. From there, we went and checked in the US. So we scouted for at each state and then summarized the information. When it comes to public infrastructure, where can you be able to operate a PMDS? So it varies from state to state, and this is just a summary of what we were able to find. You have some being allowed to operate on sidewalks and roadway. Some have no limitations, and some are limited by the type of the device that you're having. Most are being allowed if it's for medical condition, let's say for people with disabilities, or you have a mobility issue, especially the electric card. Most of those ones are allowed, but when it comes to the segways, electric scooter, hoverboards, then most of the cases, that's where these limitations come in. So you have some places where it's not allowed on public infrastructure, but you can use it on your private infrastructure and so forth. So some can be used on the roadways, excuse me, and some are just limited to the walkways or bike lanes or sidewalk. So this is just a picture for what we have in the US so far. And when it comes to minimum age in the US, it varies, but we don't have the 12 that we saw when we looked at the policies already. So you can see the minimum being 14, and some states where they don't have any specifications, and including South Carolina. That's what we were able to find so far. And the license required, we have a few states that need license, and some of them don't need license or where they have no specification at all. And these are the stats for minimum speed. So it varies from 8 miles per hour all the way to 20 miles per hour. So similar to what we saw looking at the ball, so everything other than 25 is a bit higher. But
Hi, Judith, sorry to interrupt. It looks like we lost sound. Yeah, we're having trouble. We can't hear you right now. Just a sec.
Sharon?
Okay, now you're back.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Yep.
Okay, how about my presentation? Okay, let me go back to share screen.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, going back to slideshow. Okay. Sorry for the technology. Okay, we'll get there. So for the vehicle registration, this is what we were able to find. So once we were done with the global and looking at different states in the US to see what they have in terms of the policy on PMDS, we looked at different colleges because what we found, some of the colleges do allow PMDS and then some don't. So we wanted to see for those that do allow PMDS, what infrastructure they have in place. So this part of the work is still ongoing. So we wanted to know what infrastructure they have in place for PMDS and if they do support PMDS, why do they do that? And if they don't, why not? So far, my students have been able to scout all the websites and look for university handbooks to check what universities have regarding the PMDS. So with this part of the work, we just concentrated on electric scooters. So we didn't look at the, and most schools will have those categories, electric scooters or PM hoverboards, but we pulled most work on electric scooters. And so far, the early analysis that we're able to do, though we are still working to analyze all those write-ups from the extracted information from the handbooks. What we found, you have those colleges that support electric scooters, and they're really they are really into it, and they see it as an alternative mode of transportation, and they see it as an inconvenience for students to get around the campus and the staff and workers. And they're very open to working with the companies that provide electric scooters. As you know, that we have Lime, Bird, and other companies that are coming up, and they're having these scooters for lease that students or travelers can be able to use for shorter trips. So these are a good mode, especially on campus, because most of the time you have these shorter trips, a lot of them. And for those that were against electric scooters, some of the reasons to be against it were safety hazards. If early, you might have heard in the news, early versions of the hoverboards or segways and so forth, they had this problem with fire. And so most of them, most institutions didn't like that, and they limited them in the dormitory so they don't end up with fires. But as we go, most companies have been working hard to address that problem. But so far, that's what we're able to find. And for cities that don't support electric scooters or other PMDS, institutions within those jurisdictions or within those cities were more likely not to allow PMDS. So in general, what we were able to find, not all universities have policies on how the PMDS should be handled in campus, though we were able to find a lot that have the policies on how PMDS can operate on their campus. And with respect to safety measures, what we were able to find, they most focus on the maximum speed that the PMDS can operate on the school or college infrastructure. And most don't have any requirements on the safety gears. And we'll talk about that when we cover the accident statistics on what we found, which we think it should be emphasized. And for those that, as I spoke earlier, that we have schools that really embrace PMDS and some that really don't embrace PMDS. So it's kind of not straightforward. And after we're done with the policies, we looked at the accident statistics that are related with PMDS. For this part of the work, we use the National Electronic Injury Surveillance System, the NIST database, and we extracted data from 2006 to 2017. And we covered these 4 products. And you can see we thought these 4 product codes kind of covers most of the PMDS that we can be able to get. And looking at the different years combined, I guess popularities they're gaining popularity, but at the same time, you can also see that the number of accidents are going up with time. So we didn't get the most recent data, but the ones that we have, you can see that they almost doubled if you look from 2006 to 2017. So you have almost doubled there. And scooters seems to be the most popular or have more accidents compared to the rest, but you can see from somewhere in 2015, you have skateboards picking up to scooters. So those will be the 2 most popular there. And we looked at we broke them down by age and see that we were able to see that it's not the same across the board. You can see that in scooters, you have more concentration on the kind of college, below college, you have these elementary school, 2 years all the way to 20 years there. And then you have electric cars, which originally were meant for people with mobility problems. So you can see even the usage is more concentrated at least mid to older age. And then you look at the mopeds, they're kind of more spread, though you don't see them much at the late in life where people don't use them as much. And then you have skateboards, they're very popular on the younger age. So you can also see them there. But if you combine all of them, I guess more than 60% is concentrated those age groups. And we looked at the body part. This is part of the data that's included, that's information included in the needs database. And we found, you can see that most injuries, head injuries. So that highlights that there's a need for safety gears, even though based on what we have right now, the emphasis is not that much, but I think we need to do more to emphasize on protective gears. So once we are done with that portion of the work, the policies and the accident, we looked on the operations. So we used a hoverboard. So we wanted to see how, if you are walking on a walkway, and then right now it may not be much of a big problem, but as we are moving forward and they're becoming even more popular, how do they affect pedestrians' speed, other people on the infrastructure, and how about the different width of the walkway? So we used our campus at the test bed. So we had one walkway, the one close to the this is our engineering building. So the one close to our engineering building, that's much wider, and then we have a narrow walkway close to the roadway. So with these experiments, we had a student ride a hoverboard back and forth so we can record the speed from the starting point to the end, with pedestrians and without pedestrians, to see how how do pedestrians behave when they have interaction with the hoverboard rider and so forth. So from here, this is what we were able to find: the speed and the hoverboard, the speed of pedestrians, the speed of hoverboards. And you can see that the one near to our engineering building, that's the wider one, and the one on Judith Street, that's the narrow one. You can see that speed is a bit higher on the wider one, and this is kind of a bit, that's kind of an obvious observation that we saw, especially with the hoverboard. On a narrow walkway, it was harder for the volunteer to ride on. And if there is a pedestrian, it was even much harder. The pedestrian was supposed to, most of the time, what we observed, pedestrians yield to the hoverboard rider. I think it might be because of the speed. This was the hoverboard rider, even if they slow down, they come up at least a bit at a speed compared to the pedestrian. But those were the observations that we made. And when you have a hoverboard by themselves, they move a bit faster. The same applies to the pedestrians. And then once you interact, the two, speed goes down. So this translates to what we see on a vehicle when on the roadway point of view, where you have fewer vehicles, we move at a high speed, but when roadways are congested, then speed goes down. So it's kind of the same phenomenon here. So that's my student there. So this is what we observed from the experiment point of view. It was harder to share space on narrow walkways compared to the wider walkway. And then most of the time, pedestrians did stop or even slow down when approaching a hoverboard rider. And another observation that we made, it was the hoverboard that we used for experiment. This one is not an off-road. So for rough surface, if you have some potholes or uneven surface, it was a bit harder to ride on those ones. And when you have a slope, also becomes a bit of a challenge that the rider have to work a bit hard to balance their weight. But this was what we observed when working with the hoverboard. So given that we had only 2 walkways, so we thought of having to do a simulation, so that way we can be able to vary the walkway width. At the same time, we can also be able to vary the number of hoverboards, riders, and pedestrians. And then we can be able to analyze to see how does it affect on different levels service for different walkway width, what would be the optimal point, and so forth. So we pulled the field data into the VSIM. So we used VSIM for this simulation, and this our validation to see that the data was not that different after changing a little bit of parameters that I'm going to explain, because right now in VSIM, what they don't have that PMDS rider, that kind of pedestrian that rides hoverboard. So we had to create that pedestrian. So this was our, for level of service A, because we didn't have a lot of pedestrians on the 2 walkways. So based on the traffic that we have, the number of pedestrians that we have, the level of service was A. And varying the lane width with the given condition that we had, the level of service A, these were the impact. As you increase the hoverboard, as expected, walking speed for pedestrians goes down. But it's even worse for narrow walkways. So that was a good output there that we're able to see. Now with this simulation, we wanted to do for different levels of service. So for level of service B, C, and D, so that we can be able to observe that effect and be able to recommend if you have a certain walkway width, you want it to operate at this level of service, then what kind of limitations they can have in place to make sure that they maintain that level of service. So we ended at this part because that's when, this was last semester, that's when we ended up having the lockdown, so we were not able to access the software on campus, but we are now working on the other part that we would like to explore and see what we're going to find out. So for the work that we did, and you can see that the percent change, how much speed change, and the amount of delay. So this was expected as you increase the number of hoverboards, speed decrease significantly, and you increase delay, but it's more pronounced on a narrow walkway compared to the much wider walkways. So these were the observations that we did with respect to simulation. So as when we're doing this work, there was no PMDS rider, so we had to create that PMDS rider, and there are a lot. So with this one, we just did the hoverboard. So more work needs to be done with the other ones. So we had to create that pedestrian type. And as I did say, on narrow walkways, it was hard for the hoverboard rider to share space with the pedestrians, though the 8 feet looked more adequate, and the same was kind of found when Segway did their own study. After being done with that part, we did explore how PMDS can work on connected environment. We were supported on this part of the work. This part of the work was done at Clemson because they have the facilities for connectivity. So this is the roadway that the experiments were conducted, and then this was the onboard unit that was used, and the roadside unit that was used for the experiments. So two settings were made. One was for a straight walkway and roadway, and then the crossing environment. So a lot of experiments were done, so I just presented one or two, and I thank Ron with the students. You can see them there collecting, setting up the equipment to make sure they are working. And these is what the observations. So we had a lot of scenarios, as I did say. So I picked up, like, this one was, you have pedestrians and hoverboard walking in the same direction as the car. So they're all, the car, the pedestrian, the hoverboard, they all have onboard units, and then you have a roadside unit, but they don't communicate. That's a non-connected environment. And then you have other scenarios where they communicate. And then you also have other scenarios where the pedestrians and the hoverboard and the car, they'll be moving in different directions. So I'm just presenting the snapshot of when you have a pedestrian, hoverboard, and a car moving in the same direction. As you can see, the car will be able to cross the pedestrians first, and then crosses the hoverboard next, which is kind of expected because the hoverboard moves a bit faster than the pedestrian. And this is the output, the data I have down here. That's the sample output from the roadside unit. So you have the longitude and latitude for that's the location for each unit, whether it's a vehicle, pedestrian, they have a board, and their moving speed and their read time and so forth. So that's a sample output of the data, but the full data set is available in the C2M2 report that we have in the C2M2 website. And this is another, now the same exam scenario, but now you have in the connected environment. That means the pedestrian and hoverboard are communicating with the car. So the hoverboard, the car rider is able to detect, to get the information that they're pedestrians, and then the driver gets an alert. But that's what we have so far, but we need to expand it where now the pedestrian and the hoverboard can also be able to get notifications that the vehicle is coming. So the observation is the same, that the car, depending on the direction that they're moving, if they're moving in the same direction, then the car will get the information first on the pedestrian, because the pedestrians will be much slower compared to the hoverboard rider. So these were the observations, in that around 250 feet, given the equipment that was used and the speed that the car was moving, that the driver of the vehicle got a notification within the car at around 250 away that there was a pedestrian or hoverboard down the road. So it's possible to have them connected, but a lot of work need to be done. Like a lot of work still need to be explored to see how the interaction will work in each way. So for our future research, and this is just our thoughts, because whenever I sit down, I come up with a lot that I think can be done, because based on what we did with just the hoverboard, you can see that a hoverboard rider behave different from the regular pedestrian. So this is just the hoverboard. What about an electric scooter or unicycle and so forth? Because right now we just have most operations manuals, we just have a pedestrian, but how do we handle these other devices that are coming up? And they have the potential to address this short last mile and first mile problem. So these shorter trips that we have. So we need to do a lot to make sure that we can cover that, at least address that gap. Also, we're looking at what we have presented is just, as I did say, it's just the hoverboard. So if we have as an electric scooter and a hoverboard, would that be different with just having an electric scooter on the pedestrian mix? And how would that affect that walkway level of service and operations and so forth, even safety? And of course, this one of the challenges that we were able to work with VSIM because we didn't have that PMDS kind of a pedestrian, but I think it would be good if they can be included, even if they do vary, but they can also be a range of different type of those devices that can cover their size, because they vary in size and speed, and some you have to sit, some you just have to stand. So the balance needs also varies from device to device. So all those needs to be looked at, and if they can be included in there and how they have to be included. So one of the last question I was asking myself, we have these PMDS, where do they belong within the vehicle classifications? That's open for research that we can do. So I was just thinking that can be looked at, and that we can be able to help whether we classify them as should they be able to use bike lanes or walkways, or how should they be accommodated in the infrastructure. With that, I would thank, I still have a lot of people that we're working on, but I would like to thank my students who did work a lot and spent a lot of time working on these projects. I have Grace, she worked on the analysis on those accident statistics, along with Mahmoud, who did a lot on traditional and experiments in connected and non-connected environments. And Isa did work with Mahmoud on that. Samia did a lot of work on those policies, and policies globally and the ones we have within the United States, and Omotunde is working on the ones we have on colleges. And my thanks go to Ronnie, Dr. Chaudhuri, and his students at Clemson University. They did help us a lot with the connected environment, and moving forward, we'll still need their help so we can be able to keep on exploring on the different challenges we have or improvements that we can have a connected environment. Thank you guys for being here and listening to me, but I'm open to questions now.
Right. Feel free to put your questions in the chat box, or if you like, you can just ask them directly as well. Okay, so our first question we have is, why did you decide to use a hoverboard instead of another PEMD?
Oh, I used the hoverboard. This came from the first time when I was just on campus, walking in the corridor, and one of the students just zoomed by, and then I was like, wow, he's moving very fast. So, and I saw like more than 2 on campus. So I went with the one that was much popular on my campus. But our next part is to look at the electric scooter because they are way more popular.
Okay.
we're open to ideas too on how we can be able to improve and explore more issues related to PMDS in transportation.
Okay. All right, and we have a follow-up question. Have you found that campuses with other modes of transit have been more or less receptive to PMDs?
Okay, can you say that again?
Do you find that campuses with other modes of transit have they been either more receptive or less receptive to having PEMDs on campus?
Oh, the ones with the transit modes?
Mm-hmm.
That part we are still exploring to check whether the campuses that support PMDS, because we have a list of all universities that support PMDS, but we are expanding now to see what do they have, what more makes them support them, and what's different from the ones that don't support them. So that's ongoing work.
Okay. All right, and the next question is, would you explain a little more about the VISM simulation of the PEMDs?
Okay, with that part, it was easy to just import the information, the real world information to VISM. The challenge that we got, if you're working on yourself, so as you're working, it's different with when you're on a hoverboard. Let's say for me, for my case, okay, I have my height. So when you have to put me in the VISM, you have to adapt those dimensions of the hoverboard, because I will be a bit taller than my regular height because of that height of a hoverboard. At the same time, you have to look at the width of a hoverboard, so that have to be put in place. Also, the speed, the regular walking speed that we use is not the same as the PMD rider. So we had to put that one in perspective. So we had to create that PMD pedestrian that matches a pedestrian that rides a hoverboard. So that's where the difference is. So the speed is the operating conditions won't be the same. And one other challenge that we had to address was in real world, when we did the experiment, pedestrians would stop or slow down when they are being approached by the hoverboard rider. So we had to make sure we incorporate that feature into the VISM. So we had to use some priority rules to make sure that we incorporate that behavior into the simulation. I hope I have answered the question properly.
I think so. Do we have any other questions? All right. Doesn't look like we have any more questions from the audience. Thank you again, Judith, for presenting. We really appreciated this. With all our webinars and our distinguished speaker talks, we have recorded this, and it will be going up on our website as well as our YouTube channel. And if anyone has any further questions or you think of something else, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to put you in contact. And also, the paper for Dr. Mwakalonge's project is posted on our website, so you can see the full results from this project, as well as her ongoing research that's being funded by the Center for Connected Multimodal Mobility.
Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, Dr. Mwakalonge. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.